Hello everyone, thank you again for joining us on TTF Talks, and today it's our very great pleasure to have the New South Wales Minister for Transport and just about everything else it seems, and also probably one of the faces of the earlier this year bushfire crisis, not just here in New South Wales but probably with a national profile for the effort and the care that was going into his electorate. So Andrew, Constance, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks Margie, it's good to be with you.
Thank you. So look, this has been a fairly terrible year at so many levels. I mean, you started the year with sort of the savage bushfires in the southern part of the state, which were very, very intense. Are things starting to turn around? Are you seeing recovery now?
Certainly in terms of recovery, I mean, it's been an obvious challenge with COVID, but the trucks are rolling in and taking the debris out. Lang O'Rourke's doing an amazing job. They're now a couple of hundred homes every week are being cleaned up. So hopefully by the end of June, we'll see a very, very significant milestone in terms of not only the debris being removed, but the ability for many to get past the devastation in terms of the scars that remain when you see homes burnt to the ground. And, you know, that beyond how you do a recovery, which of course is not going to take weeks or months, in many cases it'll take years, is a very real challenge.
And so in terms of industries in that part of the world, obviously tourism is pretty high on the list as being a major backbone of that part of the state's economy. Do you see it bouncing back as well? Are those communities going to be up to an influx of Australian tourism, which may very well in the next 6 or 8 months?
Look, I think as long as the virus is kept in check over the next 6 months and we can allow Australians to travel domestically, there's no reason why our part of the world can't benefit from an upsurge in domestic tourism. I think a lot of people won't be able to travel internationally come spring, and that gives us a bit of hope in terms of what we have to offer. There's no doubt between our ability to produce great produce for tourists to come and consume through to incredible national parks, wonderful small businesses, and tourist offerings from Montague Island down to Green Cape and then up to, of course, the Clyde. You know, we've got incredible opportunities which lay ahead, and as long as our tourist product is well developed, well promoted, there's no reason why it can't be successful in terms of a post-fire recovery driven by tourism.
Are you prepared to share your tourism hotspots on that part of the coast or not? Are these too secret or are you going to give them away?
Oh, look, I mean, look, the thing about the region is that, basically, the southern part of the region I represent is halfway between Sydney and Melbourne. Maximum journey time from Canberra is 2.5 hours pretty much to anywhere on the coast. And the other thing is that with the improvements in the Princes Highway, the journey times are improving all the time. So people are able to get in the car and have a weekend. So look, for us, it's got some magnificent features. At the moment, we're doing a lot of work around how we can particularly look at mountain bike tourism. We think and we believe between Mount Imlay in the south and Mogo in the north that we could run international and world-class mountain biking events, but we can also provide an offering where Thredbo very successfully has attracted thousands of people over the summer months with mountain bikes. We believe in the winter months we can be an all year round venue with the right tracks and some beautiful spots. I've been out on my mountain bike myself and seen the devastation of the fire, but it has opened and cleared a lot of incredible vistas in terms of ranges where you can see for miles to Pridgeon House in the north through to Goolaga in the south. So it's got in many ways a majestic approach in terms of what can be taken there to get people participating. And we believe you can generate immediately millions of dollars of economic uplift just through mountain biking. And then of course what flows is bike shops, coffee shops, those who do transfers between the top of the peaks and those who love just riding straight downhill and enjoying flow tracks. So yeah, there's a lot of these types of things which are coming to the fore, and there's more ideas to come. We've got a lot to capitalise on in terms of our marine environment, swimming with the seals at Montague, through to bushwalking, mountain bike riding, sea kayaking, and stand-up paddleboarding, and of course surfing, which I love too.
There you go. Andrew Constance, mountain biker. I can see a
Yeah.
job for you in tourism. So while we're talking about transport, even if it is mountain bike variety transport, one of the things that I think has probably been outstanding about the process with COVID has been the New South Wales government's commitment to continuing with a whole range of really vital infrastructure and keeping that stimulus opportunity alive. You must be czar custodian of really the bulk of those projects. How do you see that playing out over the next couple of years now?
Yeah, look, we've done a lot of work to get through COVID with our construction sites, and that's, you know, everything from good practice when it comes to social distancing on work sites, you know, to you know, minute things like how you manage a breathalyzer, you know, and who gets breathalyzed. We've kept every work site going, every construction job on track. Transport's continued to provide 130,000 jobs through this whole crisis, and we will be the workhorse of productivity when it comes to infrastructure development, and of course also the delivery of transport services in a, you know, post-pandemic world. So for us, staying the course, growing the jobs, building the great new projects is part of that. And I think, you know, to our private sector partners, we've done an incredible job. So, you know, I'm very grateful to them.
So one of the things that we have seen out of this is people, because of social distancing and a range of other issues, deciding to get back into their cars when they are travelling, those who are essential workers, etc. Do you see a challenge in actually getting consumers back onto public transport and getting those patronage numbers up again now that people have sort of got used to getting back in their cars?
Oh, I think the sad reality is affordability for people is going to be a major factor in terms of how they get around. There's so many people who've lost work and lost their jobs. The ability to finance, you know, a car, and, you know, from obviously payments through to, of course, running a motor vehicle. I see people opting for public transport, even increasingly more so. I also see a lot more people actively riding push bikes into the future because of it. But, you know, in terms of the numbers, I mean, we typically carry 2.2 million people a day. We've been down at about 400 to 500,000 every day through the pandemic. We'll start to see a little bit of an uptick with school going back and some businesses reopening. But we've got to try and do it as safely as we can. So it's been and remains an enormous challenge.
So from your perspective, we've had a little bit of chat, just moving into the area of politics for a moment. We've had a little bit of chat about the change in the nature of politics as part of COVID and the fact that everybody seems to be working together. And, you know, the optimist in me says, well, isn't this wonderful? Will this keep going? And the pessimist in me says, probably not. Where do you see the sort of the change, the softening, the collegiality of the current situation, particularly at a federal level, going? Would you like to see the National Cabinet continue, for example?
Yeah, I think the National Cabinet needs to replace COAG. I think the COAG processes are outdated, and, you know, the Federation, quite frankly, doesn't serve us well. We've got massive duplication across the tiers of government. And when government revenues are going to, you know, in essence, collapse off the back of this, I think we've got to be smart about how we do business across government. In terms of the broader, you know, political scene, you know, the community is right to expect when the country's united, wouldn't matter if it was through a bushfire or a pandemic or a drought, the last thing people want to see is typically middle-aged blokes going hell for leather on their televisions every night. I think, you know, the thing about it is that, you know, we're a far better country than that. And I think all of us, from our media to our government to our community, our leadership, I think we've got a responsibility right now. And when you have a look at what hardship is happening, you know, I drove past a Centrelink queue, and, you know, I was driving home from Sydney, and, you know, just to see that queue, heartbreaking to see, people who only 2 months ago were, happily getting on with their lives and, into the foreseeable future couldn't see a problem. And now, as human beings, as we like to plan, we can't plan in a way that we're used to. And I just think our politicians irresponsibly could fall back into the same old arguments. And, I've heaped praise on the union movement because of the way in which they've conducted themselves in recent weeks. And they deserve, an enormous pat on the back. 12 months ago, it was a very different, environment. So I think we've got to learn from our experiences and showcase that amongst ourselves and to the world in terms of how our politics can work.
Well, I don't think anybody would deny that you probably put the most human face on the whole bushfire situation and the continuing commentary around the politics of COVID. And on that sort of more positive note about human nature, what do you see as the big opportunities from the change processes that are going to come out of COVID? Are you optimistic? What do you think the big changes might be from a societal point of view?
Oh, look, I think our governments, Labor and Liberal, have done incredibly well to keep rates down and now working through a coordinated way to try and get out of the shutdowns to a normalcy that people respond to. The biggest fear we all have would be to start everything up again and then have a massive run on infection rates and clusters everywhere and having to make the heartbreaking decision to revert to those restrictions again. I think no one wants to see that. And that's the unpredictable nature of this virus. So, look, I think, our politicians generally, the ability to connect, relate, humanise the decision-making processes that you have to work through every day, communicating why circumstance might be unpopular, but the right thing to do. I think that's important. And just display a degree of kindness. I think that's what's been missing in political life for a very long period of time. And we've had this culture built up politically, which says, well, we've all got to fight. It doesn't need to be like that.
Well, that's an incredibly positive note. There's a whole range of political rumours swirling around at the moment in terms of Eden Menara. Do you see this as a by-election the federal government can win?
Yeah, I do. But it's not a question of who can win it and who can lose it. I think it's a question of a very heartbroken community getting the best representative and representation they can to rebuild. And there's a lot of broken people around, and they're not going to enjoy 20 million pieces of literature shoved in their letterboxes, people arguing on their television sets, and the media zeroing in on what this means for federal leadership and all of those things. I think where the people are at in terms of the electorate is a very, very dark, difficult period, and they need hope. And that's not a glib term when it comes to people who've trying to survive, trying to live, facing difficulties with mental health and wellness and their future paychecks. I think we've got to be realistic about that, and they can see through anybody who has an ulterior motive. The community does that. They can sniff it a mile away. So look, I just hope it's a by-election done with kindness and respect, because I think that's what our community needs, having gone through a year of hell.
Well, Andrew, Constance, thank you very much for spending time with us. That's a really positive and inspiring place to perhaps finish this conversation. And I know that TTF and all of its members will be watching with great interest the future of transport and so many other aspects here in New South Wales, not the least being ports, etc. And we wish you all the very best. Thank you.
Thanks, Margie. And can I just say to your membership, keep going and go harder. We're not going to stop. We've got the great opportunity to turn things around. We've seen that in the past, post Poles and Wires transaction, where we've been able to build great transport infrastructure. We've got to keep doing that. And yeah, there's there's sectors within the tourism industry which are going to have a rough time right now, but it will return to the good days. And, you know, we'll see the cruise ships return. We'll see our tourism operators in regional areas boom again. And of course, we've got that great global city as well to be a gem in the crown. So thanks for what you do. And I know your members will stay the course.
Thank you so much, Minister.